Everybody has a story to tell, and there was a time when we would share those stories around the kitchen table, laughing, telling jokes, talking about the events of the day, heated debates, tragic loss, living life. The kitchen table is where we could share our lives. So come sit with me and my friends as conversation unfolds across the kitchen table. In this episode, I'd love to introduce you to my dear friend Meredith. I've known Meredith for over 20 years, and even if our paths don't cross that often, I still think of her as one of my closest friends. Meredith is a complex, intelligent, and charismatic person, and it's our similarities that make us such great friends. Behind our facades, you will find a deep heart, plenty of emotions, and the desire to find the best in people. Our conversations are always quick-witted and intellectually stimulating, and this one is no different. So keep up and pay attention, because class is in session as Meredith and I discuss a plethora of topics across the kitchen table.
They're always such boring.
It doesn't feel great.
They're boring intros.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, Elwood. I think we met when I was 16, so you were probably 15. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
25 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I played for you and you were singing Bridge Over Troubled Water.
I think so.
Man, that kicks me back.
Well, I just saw a sign for Jesus Christ Superstar at the Benedum.
Oh, right? Yeah.
And I said to Laura last night, I said, why don't we go? I said, the last time I saw it was when Elwood was in it.
Jesus Christ Superstar?
Yeah.
No.
Wasn't it?
No. I was in Godspell.
Godspell.
I was going to say the last time was whenever you were the narrator, but that was
Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
So they all
not even
kind
the
of
right show.
mashed together.
That's what I said. I was like, I haven't seen anyone portray Jesus quite the same way.
That's right. It just
it's not
the God complex.
Right. Like your directors did not even know what they were creating when they cast.
Well, no. So here's what I figured out today. So Em and I were watching home videos, and for both of our 10th birthdays, my dad went back through all of the home videos that he had taken of us and edited it together into like a single thing. And that was on VHS, but we had since moved them onto DVDs. And so we're watching back through this, and I'm like, you know what? My whole desire to be a filmmaker and a performer and all that kind of stuff, it's their fault.
Yeah.
Oh, it's their fault. They were constantly
they goaded you into it.
Dance, monkey, dance.
And you danced.
Of course I did. You can clearly see when I'm trying to talk to people and they're not giving me the attention that I feel I deserve. I start getting pissed, like visibly pissed. And I'm like, 3 years old. And my head's like this huge.
You do have a big head.
Like literally.
Yeah, I can see that.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's all the hair.
It's all the hair.
Yeah.
And actually you have less hair now than when I met you, in fairness.
Well, I mean, I never had it this long. Oh, you never saw it this long in person, have you?
Not since we were teenagers.
Yeah, but
you had hair.
That was afro.
That was here.
See, after afro, it starts to sink and then it comes down to the sides. I could be even more like Jesus.
You do, kind of.
I'm going to have to just leave it down now.
I think you should just wear it down. Yeah. I've been told I have a face for podcasting, so
that's fair.
Seems fine. Seems fine.
There was a pastor at a church that actually made some sort of comment about that, like after the one Sunday that I led and sang from the piano. It was kind of to that extent that I shouldn't sing, and I was like, wow, that was really harsh.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I studied musical theater in New York City right after high school, and I had a voice production and speech teacher tell me that if I could get rid of my accent, right, my central Pennsylvania accent, I took accent reduction classes to reduce my central Pennsylvania accent.
That doesn't sound like a real thing.
No, it's real. And I remember I'm sitting there with all these kids who did not speak English at all, and I was like, oh my, what is wrong with me?
I feel like I'm an ESL.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it felt like. So once I took my accent reduction classes, she told me, she was like, I really think you should consider reading books on tape, and that's what you should do. And I was like, thank you.
Wow.
It feels like a very backhanded comment.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you saying that I just have such a silky voice that people would want to,
that's what I'm going to
a Morgan
assume.
Freeman sort of thing?
Absolutely.
Or was it a dig on
Or was it this isn't really for you?
You don't really look like you should be on stage.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I, because I didn't have enough of, an inferiority complex before I went to New York City. Yeah. That helped. And, as did, I remember, I think it was a dance teacher. I don't remember which particular genre of dance said to me that, hey, you're too fat to be the skinny girl, but you're too skinny to be the fat girl. So you got to make a choice.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm 18. Like
That's harsh.
This is horrible, right? So then I get back to my dorm room and I'm like, all right, do I eat or do I not eat? Right? Because I've been given some permission here.
Yeah. I could be Tracy Turnblatt.
Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
Because if we're going to commit, then maybe we should just commit. And so, if we're wondering where any of my trauma comes from, I'm sure none of it is that.
Yeah.
I'm sure none of it is that.
Yeah. That's terrible. I had some similar experiences with auditions, but I'm sure it's worse in that sort of environment.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
So what made you want to go for that to begin with?
It's been a long time. And so I don't know that I remember it all clearly. I think a big driver was that my parents didn't want me to.
They said no, and you're like, yes.
I have always been a little bit oppositional and anti-authority. And so I think part of it, kind of came in conversation like, hey, I guess I have a pretty decent voice. I could do that. But, I would need to go to a city or somewhere where that could happen. And I think when I saw that look of displeasure on my parents' face, it just really nailed it. Nailed it. Right. Like, oh, okay, well, then that's what we're going to do. And I think a lot about that, right? Like that my parents actually let me as a freshly minted 18-year-old. I turned 18 in April.
From Bedford County.
Yeah. Yep. That they let me in July or June. I guess it was actually mid-June. Moved to New York City by myself.
Yeah.
Which was wild.
Yeah.
But so I think a lot of it was that. And I'm not really sure that I had much of an identity outside of being a performer and being good at this, right? Like, I don't know that I was really good at anything else. I'm not even sure I was really good at that. But I certainly wasn't good at anything else or called to anything else at the time. So I was like, well, yeah, see, this seems good. Yeah. I can do this, right? Yeah. So I think it was more that. I was not necessarily, obviously I'm not doing it, right? I'm 40 and I'm here instead. But I was not necessarily driven in a way that you would need to be driven to do that and to sacrifice the things that you need to sacrifice to live that life, right? Like I still have one of my very dear friends from my time in New York City just opened and closed Water for Elephants on Broadway. She was just on a SVU episode this week as a stalker, right? It's amazing. And Marissa's absolutely incredible. She was the best of us by far. Yeah. And, she is never there. She is Kristen Chenoweth's music director. Oh. So when she's not on Broadway or in Law and Order, right, she is working directly with Kristen Chenoweth, which is amazing. Yeah. But she's never there, right? So she's on tour all the time. She's, so some of the things in my life that, I value would be very hard to have in that very kind of almost nomadic existence. Yeah. You could do it.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, me personally? Yeah. I could live under a bridge.
Yeah,
in a van,
absolutely.
Down by the river.
Down by the river. No, but I also think too, I think that you are the kind of person who doesn't necessarily need that consistency all the time.
Stability.
And stability. Let's do stability.
That's what you were trying to say. Just land the plane.
That's right.
You're kind of unstable.
Yeah.
Right? Chaos is a fond word of yours.
But I think you thrive in chaos. I think you always have.
Mostly. Sometimes it depends on the chaos.
Absolutely. And I think it also depends on where you are, right? I think to be realistic, I don't think any of us, very few of us do everything all of the time. Right. Everything's a cycle. And I think as I age too, I kind of understand how cyclical things are. But I think there were certainly times when someone could have called him and hey, we're going to go here tomorrow. Okay. And you to go. I'll go. Right. Yeah. I would have been stressed about we didn't have things planned and I don't have things packed and how are we getting there and where we're staying. Right. And you'd have been let's get in the car. Yeah. So I think, there are certain personalities that are suited to that more. And I'm not sure that ultimately that was really who I am.
So what was it like coming to some of those realizations up there in New York? And, did you ever feel like you were kind of giving up on a dream, or did it feel like a solid pivot?
No. And really I came home from New York because I got sick. Mm-hmm. The school that I went to had an incredibly strict attendance policy. If you missed more than 2 or 3 classes, you were just gone, right? And I'd gotten this kidney stone that put me in the hospital, and I'd missed a couple of days of class, but I was getting close to that line. And when I had a meeting with the school, they said, are you ready to come back? My doctor wasn't I hadn't even passed the kidney stone. I had to have some surgery to do it. And their recommendation to me was, we're going to have you just take a break, pause, take a leave, and then come back. I think I left in February or March. So the next cycle would have started in mid-June again. And they said, we'll just have you rejoin in mid-June. So I came home, I think it was that March or sometime right around this time of year. And then when I got home, fully intending to go back, that's when that reflection happened, where I was like, I don't know that even if I could be successful at that, that I want to be, or that the things that makes sense in terms of a path. So I don't think that reflection happened until that interim period between March and June, when I had to make a decision about what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But I don't think, certainly not while I was up there, did I make any real reflective decisions about, the future of this, and is there a future in this? I just assumed I would go and I would finish, and then I would be auditioning forever and I'd find something eventually, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was coming home, then having that time, that kind of unstructured time, that I went back to work and, had to make a little money and, those types of things. And then my parents were like, hey, you're going to get kicked off our health insurance if you don't get your ass back in school.
Do something.
Yeah. So then it was what am I going to do? Because in 6 months I lose this insurance. And so that's when I decided to go back and kind of pursue a more traditional path. And even initially when I went back to school, I was still very much planning to pursue performance in some capacity. Applied at Point Park. I'd actually applied at Point Park in high school and auditioned there, but I didn't want to go to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was stupid. I wanted to go to New York City, right?
A real city.
Yeah, right. I want to go somewhere else. And so I kind of poo-pooed that acceptance and didn't take that route. And then I did it again after New York. I thought now I have to think about something else. And Pittsburgh does feel like a nice compromise. And I re-auditioned at Point Park, probably that summer, late spring, early summer, and then decided ultimately that it just still didn't sit right.
Yeah.
Right.
Still wasn't a choice for you.
So when I went back to Penn State, because I had taken some classes at Penn State during high school, because they'd had this terrible idea when I was in high school to accelerate me a year in English. And they said, by the time you're a senior, we're going to have college and high school opportunities for kids. We're going to have these college credits that kids can take. Well, they didn't. So then I got to my senior year and they were like, that didn't work. So you can either go back as a senior and take 10th grade English.
There you go. That sounds like fun.
So yeah, it'd have been great. Or you can go take a course at Penn State, Altoona or UPJ or somewhere, and we'll count that, right, as your high school English credit. Yeah. And so I ended up, honestly, the only reason I really chose Penn State is because Altoona is an easier drive from Bedford in the winter than Johnstown is.
Yeah.
So, much to my father's chagrin, who was a West Virginia man, writing that check to Penn State was not what he wanted to do. Yeah. And then, I was going to be a drama teacher, and I was going to go that route. And then ultimately I actually kind of found that I enjoyed teaching and kids and English.
And the proper use of the English language.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm you're telling Nazi. Me, right? You're telling me that I get paid to just judge how other people do this.
And how long have you been teaching?
So that's a really interesting question. So I started teaching in 2006, and then I was a teacher until 2021. So what's that, 15 years? And then I transitioned in 2021 to, I was always a high school teacher, various levels of high school English. My preference was in 9th grade. I really liked that transition year, but I had taught, 9 through 12. And then in 2021, post-COVID, and I just had my second child, I decided that I was going to make a shift. I wasn't super happy in my role. There were just some weird office politic things that I didn't love. And I'd had this administrative degree that I'd been sitting on for 10 years or almost 10 years at that point. And I said, well, I'm going to go, apply for one of these assistant principal positions somewhere. So then I transitioned to a middle school. I was a middle school assistant principal for 2 years, which I actually really liked.
Yeah.
Middle school kids are bonkers, right? Like they're just different.
Yeah, all those hormones.
Yeah. And like, you know, I'd started my career with seniors. And so, you know, sixth graders are just cuckoo bananas.
Yeah, completely different.
I like them. My husband does not. He's also a middle school teacher. And that's not his cup of tea. He would really like to go back to the high school. In fact, I'm hoping that there's some openings this year he can do that because he's just not a middle school guy.
Yeah.
He finds them absolutely annoying.
Well, that is definitely, because I've substitute taught all age groups.
Yeah.
And that middle school, it does take a certain personality because, yeah, they're always off the wall. So you can't take anything they say or do personally.
No, absolutely
There's no court of law when it comes to 6th through 8th grade.
I remember looking at one kid, I'm like, you know, you're really lucky that I don't take what, you know, 12-year-olds say to me particularly seriously because like that's pretty awful, right? So, and I also wasn't teaching them, right? Mm-hmm. Like I was in this role that was very different. And I really liked that. Had some a particularly difficult first year. You know, kids came back after COVID and masks. It was bananas. They were not okay.
Yeah.
This probably won't shock you, but I can take a punch like a street fighter. And did.
And you did. That's
right?
the one that might shock you.
Had an absolutely dysregulated, like 13-year-old kid, bigger than me, right? Just not. It had nothing to do with me. I was just in the wrong place, the wrong time.
Yeah.
And he broke his hand on my jaw.
Whoa.
And
steel jaw,
right? Steel jaw.
Folks, if you ever meet Meredith in person, do not cross her in a
don't
dark
punch
alley.
me, right? Just don't do it. So that was September of that first year. And I was like, oh, JFC, what did I do? Like, this was such a bad idea. I was a really good English teacher, right? I should go back to that. But it got better, right? Like things got a little bit easier. And then after 2 years at the middle school, I was approached about a position at State College is a relatively large school district. There are 8 elementary school, like kind of like community elementary schools within this State College district. And I was approached about considering an elementary school principal opening. And so I moved. I'm finishing my second year as an elementary school principal.
So you went from the oldest kids down to the youngest kids. And not only that, because you were just saying there at the beginning of this whole career conversation of being anti-authority.
Yeah,
you have now become what you dislike.
Right. And it's like a running joke amongst my faculty too, because, you know, there are things that we have to do whether we like them or not, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty candid about like, hey, guys, this is a have to.
Yeah.
Right. Like, trust me, I've pushed back on this every way I can push back on this. Ultimately, this is like what we're being told to do. So we're going to be good soldiers and we're going to do it. We're going to hate it the whole time.
You're the villain in your own story.
Right. And we're going to do it. So I think that like, you know, being a difficult kid behaviorally in high school myself.
Yeah.
Having just that like tiny bit of like, you know, anti-establishment, anti-authority streak.
Roll your cigarette pack up in your shirt sleeve.
Yeah. That has actually, I think, helped me be better at this job.
Yeah.
Right. I think that like there has to be someone within the system willing to say like, yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Or that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it took a while. You know, I think I'm a delight, but I recognize
5 stars
more, right, as I've aged, that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. So it has been interesting, like building relationships because this job is totally relational, right? It's absolutely relational. And I think there is something about my affect that makes people think that I'm not particularly invested or engaged or, I'm just... Yeah, I just don't get like real excited about
RBF.
Stuff. Yeah, that's 100% what it is, right?
I was going to say, English teachers should tell the audience what affect is.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know
right?
affect
Just like a little flat, right? Oh, man, that's
which just reminds me,
right?
I got a question, but we'll come back to it.
So, you know, I do. I know that like there's not a lot. I got a pretty good poker face, right? Like I'm like processing. I'm pretty observant, right?
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to people. I'm like Whiskey in the Corner, Elwood, right? Which is one of my favorite versions of Elwood. I'm hoping to see it
I was going
to
say, if there's some whiskey,
I'm hoping it happens
that
tonight.
might happen.
But, you know, I'm like watching people, just kind of taking it in. And
silently judging.
and it's written all over my face, right? I think that sometimes in a job that is often really emotionally charged and very emotional for people, like teaching is absolutely personal and all of these things. And so I think sometimes like they would really like me to match their tone, right? Match their energy.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when I don't, that can be really tricky. I think I'm also kind of an outsider, right? And I think there was this difficulty in coming to an elementary level, having had no or very little elementary teaching experience. It's kind of like, well, what do you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that.
And I remember telling, you know, a lot of folks who came to chat with me in those first few months and, you know, who expressed their feelings, right, about that. I also like don't get caught up in people's feelings. I'm like, I don't know the feelings, police. I don't know. Go feel it. I don't care. Right. But here's what you're going to do. Yeah. Because like, this is the do.
Your nickname should be the warden.
Yeah. Right. You know, that it was, I said, I'm just not sure that in this building, based on the needs that I've seen, I don't know that you need an elementary teacher in this job. What you need is a people manager. Yeah. And I don't know that my deficits as an instructional leader, you know, in an elementary classroom, curricular deficits, whatever you want to call them, I don't think that's what you need. Yeah. Because I think you've had that with some administrators in the past and some leadership in the past. And I'm not sure that has served you any better. Yeah. So it might be interesting to see what does a new perspective, a different point of view, different experiences coming in, but also like an absolute, you know, I don't love confrontation, but I'm also not scared of it. Yeah. And so, you know, someone who will come in and have some tough conversations, I think that's what you need. And I think that's why they wanted me. They wanted an elementary teacher. They'd have found an elementary teacher, but they found me. Yeah. So someone thought I needed to be here. Let's figure it out.
I think that's a great idea because I think a lot of people can see it in a lot of different jobs where just because somebody is a good employee, then they get moved into management. And it's like, yeah, but that's a whole different skill set. Just because you were good at building widgets doesn't mean you're good at managing the people building widgets. So if you had those sort of interpersonal people skills that you could bring to that, as opposed to being a really good elementary teacher, that's great. Well, then you can be in an elementary classroom, but you bring a skill set that is unifying a team. I think that's a...
Someone told me the other day it was a beautiful compliment, whether they meant it or not, right? They meant it that way or not, we'll see. And they said, you know, that one of the things that they appreciate about me, which is different than liking, I might add.
Appreciate means I like you personally, right? But I respect this aspect.
Was, you know, that I can come into a room and I can do a couple of things, right? Like I can make the room weird. I could just absolutely kill a vibe. Like I've felt
some of your weirdness
I know, before. Right? Like I can come in and whatever, if it's going out in a direction, I can switch it. Yeah. Right. But I can also come into a room and sense tension and I can break it. It's usually self-deprecating humor, right? Yeah. But like I can read people well enough to know, like, all right, what we need here is a well-placed dick joke, right? Like this is, let me tell you how quickly I can turn the temperature in this room, right? Because I can say something so quasi-unprofessional. Yeah. That's like on the line, but like not over the line, right? And break tension. Yeah. And they're like, and we need that sometimes because we get so emotional. We get really caught up in these things and we need someone who can come in and do that in a way that is an invitation for people to engage and not like an admonishment. Yeah. And so she was like, you know, I appreciate that. Like, I know if shit starts to get weird and ugly and it's not what you want, you'll change it. Yeah. Right. You'll, you know, either stop the meeting and just say, hey, we're done here. That's over. Yeah. Or turn it. Yeah. And so I said, no, it's actually really kind. I've never really thought about that as a skill that I have. And, you know, I'm pretty naturally introverted. Yeah. My dear friend, Michael Williams, you know, said to me once, he was like, yeah, but that need to recharge and have that alone time. He was like, but you know, that doesn't stop you from peopling. He's like, you're really an ambivert in that way. Yeah. He goes, but at 10 o'clock when you're ready to go bed, you're upstairs and then you're done. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I know.
I think there's a lot of people, and it might be surprising, but I think there's a lot of people who are classified as introverts who are actually in more of a peopling situation. And I think that comes down to maybe people's misinterpretation of the Myers-Briggs test, because introvert or extrovert is more so where you recharge, where you gain your energy from. Because I would say to some extent I'm probably an introvert as well by those definitions.
Right.
But if you were to see me in a social situation, and it depends on the social situation, it depends on how much I amp up the juice. As I've gotten older, and then of course whenever I'm battling with my depression and stuff like that, it doesn't jump up as quickly or maybe not as high or something. But
I am married to someone who's practically a hermit, right? Like I think when we talk about introverts, like I don't know that there is anyone truly more introverted than my husband.
Yeah.
Who also has
my father.
Yeah, that's fair.
He's shitting in a bucket in the in the desert somewhere right now.
Absolutely, like that, and I think that's Dave's dream, right? Like he's home alone. My mom has the girls this weekend. I'm here, like this, and I said at one point, I don't remember who asked me, like, oh, is he going to drive out for Elwood's birthday party? I was like, absolutely not. I was like, absolutely not. It has nothing to do with not loving Elwood, but the idea that he's got 5 days in that house by himself, he might be shitting in a bucket.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right.
Just out of
this
joy.
Is Dave's dream. This is the spring break of Dave's dream.
Yeah.
But Dave is incredibly introverted. And I know a few years ago, he was doing some like reflecting and working with his therapist. And he hands me this article. It was like, what extroverts married to introverts or partnered with introverts need to know about them.
Okay.
And I looked at it and I'm like, so I texted a picture to Mike and I was like, hey, look what Dave just gave me.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, does Dave not know you're an introvert? And I was like, well, again, it's this like misinterpretation of that word and what it means because, I will turn on all the charm if I need to.
Yeah.
And all of the energy that I can muster, right? And that cycles too when we think about that. And then I'm done. Yeah. And then I'm toast. And I need time to like recharge the battery. But, it was, as Dave's trying to figure out himself and understand, like communicate his needs. But it was very funny. Mike's like, I'm not married to you. And I'm fairly certain that's not an accurate article for you to read.
Well, since we're talking about personality tests, did you ever do the DISC profile?
No. DISC profile.
DISC. No, so the DISC profile is more so in a work environment, and it's good for managers to know how to work with their employees and things. I took a pretty extensive one before I did a sales job with Anderson. And I still actually have it, and I went back to it more recently, and it actually kind of gave me a lot of insight as to the current chaos in my life, because it's more so about how you approach people and how you approach tasks. So it is a 4-quadrant sort of thing. There's DISC, and I can't remember exactly. I think the left side is task-oriented, the right side's people-oriented, and then the upper quadrants are, I can't remember. I think it's more so about outcome-based, and the lower ones are more so about reflective-based. Mm-hmm. All I know is that it put me into this kind of high I, a little bit of a D thing. I'm an influencer. Persuasive. That somewhere in there, it doesn't say it exactly, but I read it in this way, is that I use people for my own means. I'm like, well, no, I'm not manipulative. I collect people. Yeah.
I also think you figured out how to get what you want. Right. Yeah. And I actually think that's a real skill. I don't think that's something to be self-conscious about. Well, it's not that you're capable of that emotion, but if you were.
Yeah. But it's, when you take a DISC profile and you have people working with you take it, then it can be more about how you relate to get things done, because a high D personality is going to be like your CEOs. Yeah. High D.
Like the big D.
The big D.
Okay. Just checking.
Which could also be a female,
Yeah, absolutely. I bring big dick energy
yes.
to the table.
To anywhere. Sometimes you bring it into a room.
Sometimes right in the room.
And then the room gets weird.
Right? I know this about myself.
Yeah. But with the D, and they're answering emails, you're still snorkeling.
Listen, I worked in a middle school. You got to give me a minute, right?
Yeah. But with emails, like communications. So a D person is going to send you an email saying, hey, I need those reports done by such and such time. An I person is going to be more so, hey, I heard you were out for the weekend, was just wondering how, the weekend went. It'd be really great. I know you don't have a lot of time right now, but it would be really great if you could get those into me as soon as possible. Your S people are more of your scientists. So for them to even send an email is probably not going to happen. But if it is, it'll say reports now.
Right.
and that's it. It might not even be that demanding.
Sure.
Because that's why I say they might not even need or not even ask for the emails, because they just kind of expect that it's there. So they might be the ones that shut down. And then your C's are like the counselors and the caring sort of people. So they're not even going to ask about the reports. They're just going to give you this big, long, lengthy email and all these questions about how's your family and how's your dog. And I remember that such and such happened for you. You know, did the doctor's appointment go well? All that kind of stuff. So if a C sends that email to a D, they're going to be pissed. They're like,
Right.
just give me the answer. I don't need all of this backstory. So, you know, if you learn where you sit in the disc profile and then you start seeing other people as different quadrants of that, then it's like, this is how I can relate to them to get the best.
We did a pretty extensive professional development as an administrative team using the Clifton Strengths model. So it's very similar, right? And then what I did was took all of the Clifton Strengths data for all of my teammates. We had 2 openings on the team that year, last year, I guess it would be. And so I, created a form so that we could see what are we missing on our team, right? So of these 36 strengths, right? There were, and then, I think my district didn't pay for the full version. They paid for like the top 5, right?
It came with ads.
Yeah, I mapped everybody's top 5 strengths, and there were absolutely areas that like we didn't have on our team, right? And so then I said, I would love to see in whatever interview process we look at for the 2 new folks on our team, why are we looking for these guys? Like, why aren't we looking for some of these things that would complement, my greatest strength, my highest strength, according to the Clifton Strengths profile, is communication. Yeah. And so, when you have a hard message, I'm the person who should be given it. Yeah. Right. Like that's what makes sense. Yeah. And when you want a strategist or someone to, play the chess game, you don't want me. Yeah. Right? Like you want, Jonathan on the team. Like that's the guy who you say like, okay, let Meredith tell the hard thing, say the hard thing, and then let Jonathan, prepare whatever the plan is for addressing hard things. So like thinking about that a little bit more holistically as a member of a team makes total sense to me. I did end up for a graduate course. I'm also absolute moron in a lot of ways. We could talk about my number of mental illnesses if you want, but like to start, for a doctoral class that I'm taking, I paid the $50 or whatever for the full Clifton Strengths profile, because then it also lists 1 through 35 or whatever it is, to see what were my absolute weaknesses. And it's so interesting, right? Because
talk about looking at yourself in the mirror. Man,
yeah. And the strengths, if you look at like positive psychology at all, which is fascinating, there are some really interesting ideas about positive psychology, but really the crux of it is like, don't work on your weaknesses. Yeah. That's silly. Okay. Call Jonathan. Yeah. When you need that guy to do that thing, right?
So is that some of the basis? Because I was going to ask you about the positive psychology thing, to maybe like kind of explain that a little more.
So it's this idea that like, there are kind of, I think this idea of the, again, using this metaphor or this example of the strengths thing. So you got 5 things you're really damn good at. Mm-hmm. And that's what you should be doing 90% of your time. Yeah. Then you got 5 things, like those next 5 that like, you're probably pretty good at those things, and you are competent and capable. And like, you can do those things, even if they aren't, your most comfortable things, whatever. But like, you start hitting 15, you should be delegating. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and instead of, like, for me, trying to become a better strategist, right? Just become a better communicator. Yeah. Right? I'm already really good at that.
Focus on your strengths.
Absolutely.
Find someone else who can play to your weaknesses. Yeah.
And like, it does require, I think, a little bit of like humility or vulnerability to be able to say like, I'm actually never going to be good at that. So you guys just do it. Yeah. Right. But it was really interesting to see it, kind of in this, after a half an hour assessment. Right? Yeah. But it was really interesting for me, and it told me a lot of things. One of my other top 5, I don't remember where it was in order, but I mean, I would think in your top 5, they're all pretty similar, was relator, right? Yeah. Like relationships with people. Now, I would argue that like I've been pretty successful at building relationships, in my life. Right. As a kid, even, as a teenager, as an adult. But I'm also pretty selective about who I give my time to. So I can build a relationship with you. Am I going to? I don't know. Right.
I'm going to waste that
Let's
time.
See. But I think, I haven't met many people that I can't break eventually. But then there are others who I just have decided, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
That isn't going to work. And so there's no point in doing, much beyond being just kind of kind and civil.
Yeah.
Because that's not a relationship that's going to be meaningful for them or me.
Yeah.
And, I think I get some heat sometimes because all of the relationships in a school system are really important. However, I cannot and will not prioritize the comfort of adults over what's good for kids. And it gets me in trouble sometimes,
with
right?
the adults.
Yeah, because then the grown-ups
they all want their way.
Absolutely. And I get it, right? Because in a perfect world, I could do both. And I could make a decision because happy adults equal happy kids. I totally understand that philosophy too, that if you take good care of your teachers, then they'll take good care of kids. And I don't inherently disagree with that. Yeah. And sometimes the thing that's right for the kid is not what the grown-up wants.
Yeah.
And the thing that I can only do the next right thing.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I believe is the next right thing might not be the thing you want to hear.
Yeah.
So it does get me.
Brings in the rub.
Yeah, a little bit, right? And I think ultimately, you can work through most of that in a system, even when there's conflict. But yeah, I'm pretty steadfast in this idea. And I think again, that we talked about that affect a little bit and the RBF that makes it appear that I am not as empathetic or compassionate as I actually am.
Yeah.
Right. I think that there's and I'm not even sure. I'd have to think about this maybe after a shot of whiskey. I'd do it better. I don't even know that it's necessarily an act or bravado or something that's disingenuous. I don't think that I present a hard-ass shell with any kind of intention. I don't think that it's that, right? I think that it is sometimes I'm actually just a badass.
Yeah. And
sometimes I'm not.
Yeah.
And I'm also really pretty comfortable in understanding that we are contradictions, right? We are
just
constantly
as people.
having this tension of opposites and this pull in multiple directions, and we contain multitudes, right? This idea of you can be all these things.
Yeah.
And you can embrace this idea that I can be happy for you and sad for me, right? Those things can exist simultaneously.
That's a tough tough one. The dichotomy.
Yes,
that's the word
absolutely.
I'm searching for.
There you got it. The English
cognitive dissonance.
Yes. I'm really comfortable with cognitive dissonance. And I'm really comfortable and okay with sitting in discomfort, right? None of us, I think, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say none of us. Most of us probably don't crave that or seek it. But when it happens and, I don't run from it.
Yeah.
That's not, fight, freeze, that kind of thing.
I would say though that's a rarity.
Yeah.
Most people don't. They're gonna do something to get out of that situation, that uncomfortable situation. I think a lot of people react as opposed to respond. Yeah, I was just thinking about all the stuff you've been saying up to this point. I think that there's a wisdom that you carry that most people don't have, throughout all sectors. Because even if you have people that are using their people skills to influence and play the game, they're not actually looking at it from doing what's best for the organization or doing what's best for the constituents, whatever they may be. In a business, it would be the consumers, or in a school system, it would be the students. Whereas you are looking at it from that altruistic sort of angle that, like you said, it's what benefits the kids first. I recognize that the adults are valid as well, and I do recognize kind of the trickle down thing, but priority wise, setting those sort of priorities you said about with friends and being selective about that, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think there's plenty of people who have terrible relationships or stay in terrible relationships, stay in terrible friendships, all of those sort of things, because they're trying to find their identity in it, or they're trying to validate their existence in it, or something like that. Whereas wisdom teaches us that, no, I have my worth and my value and what I'm bringing to the table, and sometimes the situations don't fit with what I'm fitting into. Sometimes I have to pivot out of this and do that, but you can only have that sort of, that compass sort of thing to direct you through it. That was a big long ramble. Sometimes I do that. I mean, there's several trains that go through the station. I don't know if they're all connecting.
I understand. Well, I think it's, I'm also, I will give until it's not good for me to give anymore. Right? Like, I know this about myself. It drives people like who love me crazy. And I have to be really thoughtful about it, right? Yeah. Like, I have to be really intentional about saying, like, no, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do that, right? Because I will. Yeah. And, whatever people perceive of me, whether it's accurate, inaccurate or not, I am a lot of things. Yeah. Right? Some positive, some not so positive, right? But I am not selfish. Yeah. And I think, that selflessness, whatever we want to think about, is probably a continuum. And like, we all fluctuate within that, at certain points, and we prioritize different things. But like, on a whole, you could accuse me of a lot of things right now. And I would be like, oh yeah, correct. And I'll think about that. Like, I've not thought about that one, but like, I have in the past been accused of being selfish, and I really disagree with that. Yeah. Like, I can be reflective about it and like, tell me more about that. Like, what made you feel that way? Or can you tell me a little bit about like what you've observed that would make you think that? But I really don't think it's true.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's a founded sort of thing, I mean, I think you and I are both pretty self-reflective and we know ourselves pretty well. So when someone does call you out on something, then you're like, okay, well, I'd like to have some solid evidence of this, because maybe I've been blind to it.
Sure.
But more often than not, they don't really have anything concrete. It's their own twisted perspective of things. And you're like,
well, not all feedback is actionable. Like, hey, thanks so much for sharing that, and go fuck yourself. You can edit that out if you don't want the F word in your podcast, right? Let me rephrase that. Not all feedback is actionable, and sometimes you can say thank you for your feedback, and then you can absolutely ignore it and move on.
You can say it on this podcast as long as you say it in an Irish accent.
Oh, excellent. Noted.
Just fuck off.
For right now, moving on. So I do think that, we can appreciate and accept someone's feedback, and then also recognize that it is not actionable and it doesn't need to be. Mm-hmm. I'm really working with one of my teachers who's in kind of a leadership role, and I adore her, but she's still under this impression that every piece of feedback needs to be acted upon and it needs to be fixed. And I'm like, you're gonna burn out, friend. Yeah. Like, you are not gonna be able to do that. And sometimes you just go, you know what? Thanks so much for sharing that, and then I never think about it again. Yeah. Right? Like, truly. Yeah. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. And if it is feedback that like we really think is important, then awesome. We're gonna go and we're gonna make the adjustments, and we're gonna probably get more, right? Mm-hmm. And if it's not, we're gonna let it go. Mm-hmm. All right. So I think that that is comfortable. But I'm also really comfortable in saying like, yeah, thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Not going to do that. Yeah. And the answer is still the answer. Yeah. But, as someone who will think about it, I will. Yeah. Right? Until I won't, and then I'm done. So it's interesting. Like, I think feedback is tricky, and I don't know that I'm like lining up saying like, just hit me with whatever you got. Mm-hmm. But I think part of my job and part of my role is I have to hear it. Yes. Whether I really want it or not. Well,
and that's the thing too. I mean, having been a manager at a restaurant, it's a similar sort of thing. Sometimes people just want to be heard. Because actually, once you step them down off of the mountain and they've lost the emotional, fire of it, and they realize that you're actually just listening to them, a lot of times you can walk them into the, this was kind of absurd, wasn't it? Like, you kind of threw this out of proportion. Now, obviously, you're not using that verbology, because then they might get back up on that mountain. But you
talk a lot about size of the problem in elementary school. Yeah. Like, is your reaction like the same size as the problem? Mm-hmm. Because if you just reacted in a hurricane and this was a sprinkle, like, that's this metaphor we use with kids to talk about, like, is this a rain cloud, or is this like a thunderstorm, or is this a deluge, right?
And then you have to use the same metaphor with the adults.
Yeah, right.
They're not emotionally intelligent either.
No, right? Like, so I think that's a piece, but size of the problem is the language we use about that a lot. And you're right. When you're in it, you can't do it. Yeah. And I talk a lot about like co-regulation, and a dysregulated adult will never help create a regulated kid. Yeah. You just can't, right? Yeah. Like, there's no pattern when we think about like, okay, regulated kid, regulated adult, regulated kid, cool. Yeah. Regulated kid, dysregulated adult. Well, now we have two dysregulated people, right? Yeah. Like, so there is no combination of that like graphic I can see in my brain where a dysregulated adult ends well for a kid.
So I know this is kind of supposition, and you just have to kind of take your best guess at it. So it's kind of more of opinion based, but you've seen stuff in your own world. So I'm kind of like, I'm thinking through this. I think that there's probably a certain type of person that gets attracted to teaching. There are probably people that they kind of fall into it. Or in your case, you know, you might have kind of always had that idea, but it just didn't flesh itself out right away. But, it's amazing to me, and this even comes from like, okay, so me as a music teacher, music perspective, coming across other music teachers who just don't have a solid foundational knowledge of music education, of good education techniques.
Right.
They're not, I mean, there's so much research in all areas of educational psychology that, like, why aren't you doing what has been tested, what works, what's the current study practice? So, like, to land the plane and get to an actual question, do you think it's more so like your education that you had, the schools you had, the professors you had, what they were teaching? Or do you think it's sometimes the individual teacher's aversion to doing things under like a new umbrella or a new idea or something like that?
Good question. I think the answer is probably more nuanced than saying it's either or, as I do.
Wow, that was a political answer. Thank you, Miss President.
Thank you. I'd be a terrible president. But I think there's a couple of things. One, change without crisis is really hard. Right.
Ah.
So change without a real good frickin' reason to do
like
it
that.
is really hard.
Is that a quote from somebody?
Probably.
Okay. Because one of my questions is about like your favorite quote of hope or something like that. Like I like taking little nuggets from people.
Those nuggets.
But that change without crisis.
Right.
It's
hard.
That's huge.
I mean, change is hard, period. And
yeah.
I think we could just stop there. But change without a really good frickin' reason to do it is even harder. So COVID is a great example. Mm-hmm. Schools had to change. Mm-hmm. This was not, I had my daughter, I had my second kid February 19th, and we shut down March 10th. So I was like, still literally in ice diapers by the time we had to figure something out. I went to my first meeting back at school 3 weeks after Mira was born because it was a crisis. Mm-hmm. And we had to figure out how we're going to educate these kids when we can't see them. So that is a great example of an absolute emergency that necessitated change. Mm-hmm. And so even people who didn't like it, well, tough shit, right? Like we're doing it. And this is right. But if you just want to make systemic change, which is horribly difficult, right? If you just want to make systemic changes, you've got to, I don't want to say create a crisis, but you have to help people understand the urgency and create a sense of urgency. We've got to change this now because it's not good for kids. Mm-hmm. And here's why it's not good for kids. And here's the long-term impacts of like what I think, whatever. Mm-hmm. But you have to create a reason. Mm-hmm. And this is why systems change is so hard and it's often impossible, is one, because it takes so long and it's just so difficult. You're just dragging people with you. Mm-hmm. But we've demonstrated the ability to do it when we have an absolute emergency. When there's a school shooting, people get their shit together, right? Mm-hmm. It happens. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean we learn from that and then we move on and have better things going on. But like those are examples of like a real crisis will change behavior. Yeah. But in the absence of a reason to change or a really compelling reason to change, it's really hard. Yeah. So I do think part of it is that resistance to change or not wanting that comfort, right? Like I understand how to do this. But getting back to your first question about what kind of people are teachers.
That was kind of a pit stop on the road.
I
saw
it was
question.
like one of the trains, but I do think it's interesting too. I will use you as an example because, why not?
It's my podcast.
Your podcast. Why not? Absolutely. You are a phenomenal musician, right?
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
No, I'm not. Right. I'm the Prince, formerly known as the symbol, formerly known as.
Formerly known as. And your passion was not children. Your passion was music. Mm-hmm. And so we've got folks who come in as absolute content specialists. Like I love chemistry, right? I love science. I love math. I love English. I love reading books and literature. I love writing. Whatever. Yeah. So you do have people who come in as devotees of their content. And it's like, but what the hell am I going to do with my love of history? Well, I'm going to be a teacher because that is what you can do with this passion and this interest. And, when we think about the intersection
in a useless subject like music.
Yeah, right. Also. And so I do think, that that is part of the challenge. And then I do think you have the rare people who come in because they genuinely love kids and get kids. So if you were trying to take a content specialist and the lover of biology, and then put them in a classroom where your job is on your best day, 10% biology, right? Like 10% biology.
Yeah.
And I think that the same way I would, equate this to English because it's easiest for me, in a 90-minute block. I taught block periods at the end of my teaching career. In a 90-minute block, I was really lucky to get those kids doing content for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's because I'd been teaching for 15 years and knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
So if that's why you are teaching, you're not going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And if you can learn to be fulfilled because you can gain those skills, those instructional practices, those high impact strategies to grow kids, if you can get excited about teaching kids in the same way you're excited about teaching biology, then that's the perfect match, right? Like that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Some people don't get there.
I was going to say, do you see that happen often?
At the high school level, I did. I worked with some folks who I really think really liked math. Yeah. Right? I'm not sure they like kids.
They all have pocket protectors.
Absolutely, but they really liked math. So I do think, and of course, like when you think about the American system, in an elementary school, you're a generalist. You're teaching everything. You teach math, you teach reading, you teach science, you teach social studies, you teach social emotional learning, you teach all the things. In a secondary model, you're a science teacher, you're an English teacher, you're a math teacher. So I do think I saw it more at the secondary level than I do at the elementary school level. But I think that matters in even answering the question you got to, which is why are people not doing this, right? Or why is it difficult for them to shift and change their perspective or their practices or whatever that is? I think that's part of it too. I think it really depends on why I got into it. And it's not a judgment. I think there are some phenomenal teachers who came in because they like science and then figured out kids. Yeah. But if you came in because you love to play the piano and then you have to manage real shitty student behavior, right? That's
not going to be high on your list.
Right. It's just not going to be something I think that's necessarily a good fit, or it could take a long time for that to develop. And I almost, kind of joke sometimes. I'm like, I can teach you content. I can teach you curriculum. I can't teach you how to kid and how to people, right? So all of that other stuff to me feels secondary to the people skills and the engagement and relationships with kids and how you perceive, like, do you believe all kids can learn? Because some people don't, right? And do you believe that we can love kids and protect them and feed them and clothe them and all the things I spend a lot of time doing? My job's 50% social work, I would argue, and teach them to read. Because if you don't, you're not helpful. You're not building something here that is going to help these kids, especially at my school, which is one of the only true title schools in my district. My poverty is more than twice that of any other building. But it's not just the poverty, it's the intersection of trauma and race and poverty and the intersectionality that matters and why it makes my school so hard. But I don't need you here if you can't do both of those things. So that's really tricky too.
Spoken like a true principal.
Yeah.
You were just now coaching a bad employee. I felt like I was the bad employee.
Are you the bad employee?
I felt like, because you were definitely putting these two options on the table, sliding the paper across and saying either you're on board or you're not on board.
What are you doing? Get on the bus or get off the bus, right?
I'm the one driving the bus.
Yeah. To hell. That bus. Well, you've had your seat reserved for some time, so.
Yeah, they know me there. Well, the thing is, I wasn't necessarily meaning that people won't change, because I think, okay, so like we should probably wrap this up sometime soon, but we can go on forever.
I didn't even notice we're on a podcast. Actually. This just sounds like what Meredith and Elwood do.
Just talk about
every time they get together.
See, I'm interrupting you less. And
that's true.
You notice I haven't walked out of the room when I got bored. Because that's I know. You love sitting in the corner judging, sipping whiskey, Elwood. There's also Elwood, I'm done with your conversation. I walk away and find another one.
I know.
Which in my later years I've gotten less with, because I'm trying to be like kinder to people and trying to listen, even if I'm not fully engaged in what they're saying. My body is really good at producing all of the affirming sort of, I got you, buddy. I know exactly what you're saying. I'm such a dick.
I think you are self-aware.
I know when I'm faking it.
I'm also like now recounting 25 years of friendship going, when has he walked away from me?
Uh-oh.
When has he walked away from me? When has it been clear that he's just done with me?
Just done.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll come back around.
Yeah.
It's just for the time being. It's the high anxiety.
Well, it's also this idea of like being a social butterfly. And you can mask some of that, I'm bored, moving on, with like, I'm just flitting around the room, attending to everybody, right?
That's
like
right.
there's a space in there. There's a line somewhere.
I don't need to let people know where that line is.
Absolutely. But I also think like if you walked away from me at any point in the last 25
Throw
years.
A piece of chalk in the
I
back
would
of your
get the hell back
Excuse me,
here.
buddy,
I'm
what are you
sorry.
doing?
Did you think we were done? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it may not have happened to me because I would have demanded your attention if I thought we weren't done.
That's true. You do like to. You and I both like the attention.
I don't know if I'd say I like the attention.
You don't like it the way I do.
It's different. I can tolerate the attention, and I will actually pull the attention away from someone else if I notice that person is really uncomfortable. I can be like, the trick pony.
Divert your eyes.
Yeah, like look over here.
Look over
Me. That person's crying. Like,
Yeah.
So I'm good at reading that and like helping people out. And if I notice that, we talked about it earlier, if I notice that the conversation is getting tense or weird, I'll pull it.
Yeah.
And I'll do something that
Yeah.
just like pulls it to me. But I don't know that it's that I need it.
You're forming questions in my brain for part 2 of the podcast with you.
Listen, I also think it's fascinating. I haven't gotten to talk to you in any real way in a long time, right? Couple phone conversations
Maybe
here
a
and there.
decade-ish?
Right. I certainly am comfortable enough talking to you that we could do this all night, right?
Yeah.
And I think we would be hilarious and people would
Yeah, we think
absolutely,
we're funny.
absolutely want to listen to us. Like
I just don't know if people could listen to us for that long.
that long, correct. And I also don't need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like that's not a need, and I've heard feedback before, like you talk so much and you never shut up, and I'm like, that's okay. I don't see that, but I can, have, but is it that? Will I do that willingly, readily, naturally? Probably not.
Yeah. See, I've found for myself, especially as I've aged, and especially since I've been around other chatty people, the way I'll put it, is I've gotten so tired of being like interrupted, talked over, or not heard that I just won't say anything. And it's like, if you really want to know what I have to say, ask me a question and then shut up and listen to the answer. Now, the answer might be long-winded, admittedly. Sometimes, I once I start a sentence, it just never stops. And even if I need to take a breath and I sneak it in there real quick and I can just write back into it, because then people are like, well, if he takes a breath, then I can get in there. It's like, no, he just took a breath. You completely missed it. Oh, there's my chance. Well, guess what? He took a breath whenever he was even doing that.
Inward singing.
It's like
very Tenacious D. I'm into it.
Yeah. Sax man. So, well, to finish off, I am curious about the one about hope. We will have to touch those other questions on another podcast, but because I would say while you're thinking about it, I think it's cool because so with some of these other podcasts, actually of the ones I've done so far, 3 of them were with pastors. I have a lot of pastor friends.
I'm an ordained minister, so I can see.
Oh, see, now you're talking about part 3. Ooh, I should have a meeting of the minds. Have several of the pastors sitting around the table. Touch on the hot button topics.
I'm in.
Amazingly, we stay away from hot button topics because I think the whole thing with this podcast isn't about being right or wrong. It's about the relational order of things. And, and I am a storyteller at heart, and I love stories, and I love hearing people's stories. And I think that in our sharing of stories, I don't always share all of my story. And I'm, like you said, selective about friends. I'm selective. I'll be an open book. But I share different versions or different intensities of the story depending on who the audience is. But when you're pretty vulnerable and you share some pretty deep stuff of your story, it's amazing how cathartic that can be for other people to hear. And I think it's really important to know that you're not alone in a lot of the things that we feel and experience. Because since we don't share stories anymore, we send texts and memes and things, and it's kind of a thing, I suppose, but it doesn't have the same impact of talking about your own personal story and things that have affected you. And, because we all go through our ups and downs, and it's great to hear why people do the things they do and what makes them tick. And it's like, oh, so-and-so did this, I can identify with that. So if they made it through, then I can make it through. I mean, you said earlier about mental illness. I would say if there is one bend about this podcast, it's kind of, at least for me, it's a passion of mine. It does a lot of times come back to that sort of a thing because of, my family and my own suffering with it and things.
Well, part 4 of this podcast with us.
We're going to have a whole anthology.
Absolutely. We could absolutely talk about, me dealing with my own mental health struggles. And I live with someone who's bipolar, diagnosed bipolar, being treated, and being the spouse of, someone with just absolutely incredible anxiety and agitation and, hypomania, and who conversely is clinically depressed at other points in his cycle, right? We talked a lot about cycles too, would absolutely be like another interesting thing to talk through. But I do think this version of storytelling, sitting across the kitchen table from somebody is where authentic, genuine stories happen. I think next time, like I said, I think we have a drink. I think that helps. Right?
It does.
But I think I think there's a lot of value in storytelling, and it's an art that I think we're losing. So it'd be lovely to see a really explicit effort to bring that back.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's the basis of this podcast.
Here we are.
Yeah. Do you have any closing words for this one? Do you want to answer that question? Have you thought of an answer for that?
Well, I went away from it. I do think this idea of, again, based on all of those experiences, that like, this is not the end, right? This thing that feels so big, so heavy, so insurmountable right now is about to be the past, right? And
is about to be the past.
Yeah, I think that we have to keep that perspective. Like, I'm getting screamed at on the phone by a parent. I'm like, you know what? But at 3:30, I'm going home.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my past. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be pissed off about it, right?
Yeah.
But it's about to be my past. And so I have to, both the positives of that I can leave this thing behind that I didn't really enjoy, that made me uncomfortable or made me angry or sad or whatever. And then also on the flip side, like, I don't know that I'll ever hold my 11-year-old daughter again. I don't know that I can, right? But that's like, this experience with her is about to be my past too. So it's a
double-edged sword.
Absolutely. So there
that's
you go.
Interesting. It's very much living in the moment. Right. I like that.
I'm interesting.
You are interesting.
So I've been told.
So we'll have part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll see what happens.
Got it.
Thanks for stopping by today. There's always a seat at the kitchen table and another story to tell. If you have a story to tell, I'd love to hear from you. Please send me a message. And also subscribe to the channel to look for more episodes, anecdotes, and information. Talk to you next time and have a great day.